Hey everybody, how's it going? Cynthia, good to see you. Janice, Derek, Kimberly, Cheryl, Jimmy, Ben, Susan, Dorothy, and Jack. Good to see y'all. Or at least good to see your names. How's everybody doing? I think I asked that, but I'll ask again. Thank you, Ben. Good to know. Actually, do have a new setup that I think I've got figured out now, so I'm happy about that. Actually, I'm a little hot. I'm going to come down just a touch. That's better. It was a beautiful day, wasn't it? I'm not. I mean, it's whatever, I guess. But I mean, I bought firewood and like kindling sticks and Duraflame logs, and I was ready for a cold Christmas morning and the first fire that we've had since we moved here. Be our first fire ever, huh? Didn't have a fireplace at the last parsonage I lived in. Alas, forecast says 80 degrees on Christmas Day. Good times. I'd probably complain if it was cold. Oh, sorry, 84 degrees on Christmas Day. We will definitely have the air conditioning running. Guess we can have a fire if we have the AC running, right? Someone needs to make some logs that don't actually put out heat. Janet says Christmas shopping is killing them. They're down to the last gifts, the hardest ones. Yeah, the last ones are always the hardest. We've had ours done for a while now. We did a bunch early November, so of course we haven't wrapped them. We won't actually wrap them until 10 o'clock Christmas Eve evening. Luana Ashton Weber Funk, good evening. Yeah, I'm sure there are lots of people who would love an 84-degree Christmas, so I won't complain about it anymore. And I didn't buy the firewood and all that for Christmas. I bought it all for February. So if I don't need it at all this winter, I will be happy. Misty Bedford made it. Yeah, we really should have wrapped stuff a long time ago. We could have put it under the tree, but nope, we haven't. Speaking of warm, I'm gonna have to turn our air conditioner down or on. Oh my goodness. I guess I won't. Did you set it to 70? Oh well, I'll just be hot. Not a problem. Maybe I'll actually just kick it on just a little bit. Just a little. So tonight's going to be I know I say this a lot and it ends up not being true. Every time I say it, I really think I mean it. But tonight really is going to be short because we're entering into sort of a new chapter, only it's ironically not a new chapter. but we're entering into a new chapter of the Israelites, of their story, their backstory. That's very important, which is the rivalry between Jacob and Esau, the sons of Isaac. And I want, there's just no point in getting into that yet. So we're going to kind of do a short continuation from where we're at right now, and then maybe I'll try to sum up things a little bit, and if you have questions you can ask them, and we'll see. Chance for that fire, the first day of winter solstice, isn't? Yeah, today. Gotcha. Those were two separate thoughts. I got you. Today is the winter solstice, isn't it? This is the earliest dark we'll have ever gotten. Until, 6 months from now when it starts getting darker again. Somebody's got a boy in her lap. Julius, to be very specific. All right, couple more minutes and then we will get going. And if you're with us over on YouTube, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Hey, Jeff and Jill are on YouTube. Would say speak of the devil, but that would not be kind. What else is up? Oh, you guys know we're not. This will be the last streaming event for 2021. So 2022, the Sunday night stream we're going to revamp to do something a little bit different. I'm not entirely sure what that is yet, or I kind of am. I just don't know if we'll be ready right then. But we'll get it going quickly. Tuesday streams will stay the same forever. As long as you guys are interested in being here for Tuesday night Bible study, I will be here doing Tuesday night Bible study. Susan Sutherland says hello to Jill. I can translate between the two competing services. Couple more minutes. Yeah, I'm glad you guys like Tuesday nights. I really love streaming on Tuesday nights. I love our Bible studies. So where are we? Let's see. I'd have to actually have a physical Bible in front of me to know exactly how far through the book we've gotten. But there are 50 chapters. Oh, this is kind of cool. There are 50 chapters, and we are going to almost wrap up the 25th chapter tonight. There's a little bit more that we're going to do. But that means we're about halfway through Genesis. Yeah, we're starting 25 tonight. We just won't finish it. Yeah. So we'll be halfway done after tonight. See, Jill, we're flying through it. We should probably slow down. Jill says, hey, Susan. What shall we do next? What shall we do after Genesis? We did a good chunk of Matthew. We did Ecclesiastes. Old Testament. We should do one of the epistles, probably. We should do John. You know what? I think we'll do the letter to John. And I will confess to you why I want to do the letter to John. The reason is most people in seminary take the same professor for the first half of the Old Testament and the second half of the Old Testament. It's a year-long course, 2 one-semester classes, and then a year long with Old Testament or New Testament professor as well. But instead, I switched professors because different professor fit my time schedule a little bit better. And also I just wanted to, both the New Testament professors were amazing. And I just wanted the experience of having both. Um, if I'd known what I learned later that semester, I would have stayed in the first one because she was retiring. That was her last year to teach. And so she didn't give anybody a final. She just gave them all A's on their final. And I missed out on that. But anyway, the teacher that I had for the second semester went all the way through the letters to John in the first semester. So it was Matthew, Mark, Luke. Nah, I don't want to look stupid. It was all the books. I feel dumb. Hang on. Yeah, of course. Silly me. It was Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians. That doesn't make any sense. Well, whatever. I did not. I think he taught John after the book of John, and I think we spent most of the first semester going through the Gospels. Nonetheless, the point is, I didn't have John, 1st John, 2nd John, or 3rd John in seminary. So I've read them, but I have never studied them in the detail like we're studying here. So if we do those three, and they're small, I mean, 2nd John and 3rd John are one chapter apiece. 1st John is 5 chapters. So after we do that, then I will feel like I've adequately studied. All right, we're going to get going. John's a good dude. His gospel was my least favorite, and now I think it's my favorite. I've warmed up to him. All right, let me open up my study Bible. So we are we'll back up a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, I think we're just starting Genesis 25. Yes, Genesis 25. That's where we're starting. Abraham took another wife, so he was not yet done. There's not much about this. Not a lot of people know that Abraham had a wife after Sarah, because his entire life is wrapped up in just 5 small verses that begin the 25th chapter of Genesis, and then that chapter quickly turns on its heels and moves sort of past Isaac and into the next generation. Isaac is not he doesn't take up very much ink on the scrolls. We get very quickly into the life of Jacob specifically, but Jacob and Esau together. And Isaac, believe it or not, is not really presented to us in the best light. Isaac's a bit of a misfit, if you read what's on the page. But we'll get to that. Of course, I say that sarcastically, that you would be surprised. Everybody's been presented as a bit of a misfit, right? Which is kind of the point, I think, that the authors of the Old Testament were making, was that God uses the misfits, because in the end, we're just all misfits. And so if God didn't use the misfits, there wouldn't be anybody left. So Abraham took another wife. Her name was Keturah. She bore him Zimron, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan. The sons of Dedan were Ashurim, Ledazim, and Lemuim. All of these were the children of Keturah. Abraham. Okay, so those 4 verses are important for 2 reasons. One would just be historical importance. It would have been important to the people who heard this story because those names would have meant something to them. We really are only concerned with the lineage of that passes from Abraham to Isaac and to Jacob. Although, and as we'll see, Ishmael actually gets he gets more ink in the book. Um, so so we'll come back around to him. Um, Now, historically, these names are not interesting to us because we don't recognize any of them. But just think about the life that Abraham had after Sarah died. He married another woman. And he was already old, right? Um, and she had 6 kids, which is sort of interesting numerically. If you think about Jacob will have 12 kids. Ishmael had 12 kids. There were 12 tribes of Israel. There were 12 disciples. I mean, there's some numerology going on here. It would be interested sometime. I would be interested in looking at numerology in the Bible, but we'd have to do it from a point of interest only. Like I don't buy into numerology myself, but they obviously did, and so it would be very interesting to kind of figure out what all the different numbers mean. I think it would be interesting and fun. I don't know if it would be spiritually motivating, so maybe we'll skip it. But it seems kind of interesting. But here in this second half of Abraham's life, he has 6, which is obviously exactly half of 12. I think that's probably not unintentional because these are all men. I'm assuming. I can't guarantee that by the names, but that's yes. Thank you, Ben, very much. I'm assuming by the names or by the fact that in the Bible they usually only mention the sons and not the daughters. That there were probably other kids as well. So so that's all. I just want us to recognize that even though it looks like Abraham is done, his sole purpose in life was not to help give birth to Isaac. I think that's important. I think it's important for us to see that, to know, to hear that, to know that. Um, Even if the most important thing that he did was father Isaac, and teach Isaac how to be a faithful follower of his God, the God. That would be enough for certain. But Scripture wants us to know that he had a life after that. And I just think that's a little message for us that even if you think that you have accomplished the thing that God sent you on the earth to do, that there's more for you. Your life doesn't end there, you know? Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in a few things. Now I will put you in charge of many things, right? So, Sue from St. Joe Mo, good to see you. So I just think that's something that we should take note of. Verse 5 says, Abraham gave all he had to Isaac. And the implication here is that upon his death, he gave everything he had to Isaac. Because the very next line says, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living. Okay? Sorry, I skipped just a little bit of that. To the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave gifts. Okay? And it doesn't really say here, I mean, I'm assuming they're not including Keturah, his wife after Sarah, as a concubine. So he had other concubines that he had children with. I'm sure he gave things to everybody. But to the sons of his concubines, and again, doesn't say anything about the daughters, but I think that's more to do with the writing of the time. Abraham gave gifts while he was still living. And I almost think this should be a but, and he sent them away from his son Isaac, eastward, toward the east country. Now, it's very likely, as I said, these names don't mean anything to us because we don't recognize them. I mean, some of them do. You know, Medan and Midian are places in that area historically. My guess is that the implication is those are where those people settled. That they were the founders of the towns and cities that people knew there, and so that was important to them. And the point is that he moved them away eastward, and so geographically, historically, that would have meant something to the earlier the earliest Israelites hearing this story. To us, it just, I think it's important to see that he wanted his son Isaac set apart, and that's something that we may end up talking about more in a different context. But that is what, for instance, ordained ministry is. To be ordained means to be set apart. And so in this way, Isaac was ordained to do something important. And as it turns out, the only really important thing that Isaac does is give birth to Jacob. And some silliness that ensues that we'll talk about. But again, he still had a life. He had a life. He had a wife. He, after he gave birth to Jacob, he still went on and did things. But the point here being that Abraham wanted to keep Isaac set apart from everybody else. So Isaac was not only his favorite, but was treated in many ways like an only child. Okay, the next heading, and that heading was Abraham marries Keturah. In some translations, it's Abraham takes a wife. These headings, of course, are written by the translators. They're not in the original scrolls. And the next heading is the death of Abraham. This is the length of Abraham's life, 175 years. So I almost feel like if you want to view Abraham's life in a way that we could understand it, I almost think it's just 2 years is 1 year. So that would mean at 175, he lived to be 87 and a half years old. And when he gave birth, not when he gave birth, he did not actually give birth. When he fathered Isaac, he was, when Isaac was born, he was 100. It makes more sense for him to be 50, if we think about that. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of difference, but it does kind of change the story a little bit. And the ambiguity of it all tells us that we don't know the full story. So we can make a big deal, and I used to make a big deal, and people have for the last 70 years made a really big deal about the fact that Isaac was like 18, 19, 20 years old when Abraham goes up and binds him to the altar. But if it's a factor of 1/2, then if he was what they called 18, he'd be what we called 9, and Abraham would have been 50, and that makes a lot more sense, right? It makes a lot more sense for a 52-year-old to overpower a 9-year-old than it makes for a 100-year-old to overpower an 18-year-old. Again, for me, what I've gotten out of this study this time is that there's enough ambiguity that I'm not going to put any measure into the age factor at all, because we don't know. But scripturally, he lived 175 years. Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age, an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people. And this is an interesting line in verse 9. His sons, Isaac and Ishmael. Ultimately, it seems like they are the only 2 sons that really matter. And only one was from Sarah, right? Isaac was from Hagar, Sarah's maidservant. But Isaac and Ishmael got back together. And, if you remember, when Sarah gets jealous and sends Ishmael and Hagar away, it's because she sees Isaac and him playing together, and she's very jealous, and she doesn't want Ishmael to be part of Isaac's life. She doesn't want Ishmael to receive any of the blessings that Isaac receives. but it looks like the sons at least maintain some kind of relationship. And so his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite, east of Mamre, in that field that Abraham purchased from the Hittites. So remember, made a big deal about this plot of land that Abraham bought and had a receipt for, and it was in front of people, and everybody knew he paid what it was worth, every shekel of what it was worth, and it was his and it belonged to him. And so the place where he died was not foreign land, because it was not good to die in foreign land. And so what would it have meant if Abraham had died in a foreign land and it wasn't good? It would have meant that Abraham did something bad, right? Because in the theology that these people understood in this day, that this was written, in the day that this occurs, and in the day that this is written down and shared with the Israelites of a later generation, they believed in that Deuteronomistic theology, that if you're a good person, good things happen to you. If you're a bad person, bad things happen to you. And being dead and buried in a foreign land would be a bad thing. And that couldn't happen because Abraham was a good person. So they wanted to make sure everybody knew that he had deed and title to the place where he was buried, that it was his little carved out place of paradise in the midst of what would be foreign land otherwise. So that's what that's all about. After the death of Abraham, God blessed his son Isaac. And Isaac settled at Beer Lahairoi. I am kind of interested. I wish I understood exactly what that means, what it means that God blessed Isaac, and that it didn't happen until after Abraham had died. They would have, again, the way that you could tell somebody had favor with God, the way you could tell somebody was blessed by God, was because they had lots of possessions. I'm not saying that this is the truth. I'm saying this is what they believed. And at this point, Isaac would have had the possessions because we've clearly read that Abraham gave Isaac everything. But anyway, we don't know. That's all it says. After the death of Abraham, God blessed his son Isaac. The point is there's this sort of, I guess you could call it a precursor to apostolic succession. It's going to be important to track, and again, perhaps not literally, but there's a genealogy that goes all the way from Adam all the way to Jesus. And from there, we have this apostolic succession where Jesus ordains Peter and Peter to Paul and Paul to other people. And we have this laying on of the hands that goes all the way even to today. And so this is sort of it's important in a very similar way. Because the people of Israel need to be tied to their history. And so they are tied through it through a very strict genealogical path. And in fact, when you get to Matthew, the first thing that Matthew does is lay out the genealogy. Because for Matthew, one of the most important things he wanted to make sure people understood is that Jesus was the fulfillment of prophecy. Even that prophecy that goes all the way back to where God told Nathan to tell David that he didn't want to see a house made out of cedar, and that one day he would make for David a house, and in that house would be a throne, and on that throne would sit a king forever. And that king, of course, we know is Jesus. So that's what we have. And we have where Isaac settled. And now we have, as I said, Ishmael gets some more ink. Not a tattoo, just inks on the scrolls. These are the descendants of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's slave girl, bore to Abraham. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael, named in the order of their birth. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, and Kedar, Abdil, Mibsan, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their villages and by their encampments, 12 princes according to their tribes. So again, just like we're going to have 12 tribes of Israel, Ishmael goes off and has 12 children, and they have 12 tribes. And again, this is important for the same reason that what we talked about earlier would have been important. It's important for the geography of the Israelites and their historical understanding of how towns got their names, that sort of thing. This is the length of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. He breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people. They settled in Havilah to Shur, which is opposite Egypt in the direction of Assyria. And then this last line is going to give us just a little bit of intrigue because it's something we don't know exactly what the scripture means. They settled, he settled down alongside of his people. Good evening, Terry. Good to see you. Okay. So Ishmael settled down. So after his death, he settled down, or that could mean he fell. It means either he settled down or he fell. And alongside of either means next to, or it can mean in opposition to all of his people. Don't you love words that are the opposite of each other? It happens over, words are that are their own opposites. It's called a contronym. And it happens usually over a long period of sort of evolution of language. I can give you an example of something that's happened very recently, and I blame Rob Lowe for this, is that if you, and again, the purpose of a dictionary is to report language use. It's not to actually define words. It's a historical document that says how words were used. And so if you ever watch Parks and Rec, you will see Rob Lowe all the time says, literally, he says it like that, literally, and every time he says it, it's not literally. He'll say, I literally died. And somehow, between the time that show started and today, if you go to a dictionary and look up the word literally, for one of its definitions, it will say figuratively. So literally now also means figuratively. There are some other words. What's some good ones? Trim. If you trim a tree, you're trimming the branches, right? If you trim a Christmas tree, you're putting things on the tree. Bound can mean that you're moving towards something or that you're tied up and restrained. Fast can mean secured in one place, right? The word that we get fasten, like it held fast, wasn't able to move, or it means moving quickly. One of my favorites, there's a whole bunch. One of my favorites is cleave, because that's in scripture too, right? A man shall leave his mother and a woman shall leave her home, and they shall cleave to one another. I'm not going to sing the troubadour, but cleave means to stitch together, to hold together, or to split apart. All that to say, that's what we have here. He either settled down alongside of all his people, which kind of makes it seem like he peacefully, lived with his people and settled down and had a nice lifestyle until he died, or it could equally mean he fell in opposition to all of his people. Flammable and inflammable, those are two different words, but I think yeah. No, just right. Flammable, Inflammable means easily set on fire. I wonder if we just use it incorrectly. Okay. Yeah, not quite, Kim, I don't think, but I totally get the direction that you're taking. According to this, flammable means that it can be set fire to, and inflammable means that it can burst into flames without the need for any ignition. But yeah, you get the idea. So in other words, we've got this sentence here that we have no idea what it means. It either means that he settled down with his people and it was great, he lived a great quiet life, or it meant that he was always in opposition to his people. Well, what's one of the first things that we ever heard about Ishmael? Do you remember the phrase, a wild ass of a man? I remember that phrase. Let's I'm going to go back and find it. Almost there. Getting closer. Went too far. Oh my goodness. Oh, there it is. I just had it. Odds with his kin. Okay. This is what the angel of the Lord said to Hagar the first time she ran away, and the angel tells her to go back. He says, "Now you have conceived and shall bear a son. You shall call him Ishmael. For the Lord has given heed to your affliction. He shall be a wild ass of a man, with his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He shall live at odds with all of his kin." So that being the prophecy for Ishmael, I submit to you, different kind of ASS, Ben. I submit to you that, in fact, let me get back to it. I apologize. I'm scrolling through the entire book of Genesis. Oh my goodness. Chapter 24 was long. Okay. So when it says, the scripture says, the way the NRSV chooses to translate it is, he settled down alongside of all his people. And I think that's a silly translation. I think it's the other thing. I think it's, he fell into opposition with his people, because that's what the prophecy was, right? He had a rough life, probably, because he was stubborn and I don't know. Anyway, does it matter? Not to us, not really. That's kind of the end of Ishmael for us. So it mattered to them in a way that it would have been part of their history. You know, like I said, they would have known all the cities and towns and settlements and everything else where those were named, and they would know that they were attached to it and that sort of thing. Might have explained why they had poor relations with some and better relations. It's really hard to say at this point. A lot of that is lost to history, but it was important enough to write down. And so that makes it important, right? If the professor writes it on the board, it's going to be on a test. So anyway, that's it, because the next section is the birth of Esau and Jacob, and I don't want to talk about that yet. We're going to save that for the new year. So as promised, this is a short session tonight, only 40 minutes, 30 really, because we didn't start until 7:10. And that's it. So I hope that you have enjoyed our journey thus far. As I said, we're really, I wish I don't have a physical Bible up here. And so I don't have a way to see, like, quantitatively how many words were into it versus how many words are left, but we're halfway for sure. And we've only been doing this for 4 months. I don't know how long we've been doing Genesis. Anybody know? It doesn't matter. You know what? I can do this. I can do this and find out. I can go to YouTube and go to Oak Park United Methodist Church. I can click on our videos. We have a lot of videos. So I've been using this Genesis background for them starting 5 months ago. So we've been in this for 5 months and we're halfway through. So I would say in about 4 months, we're going to be done. And then, like I said, I think we'll skip, right now I'm thinking we'll skip ahead to John, but I am easily swayed if y'all want to do something else. I'd even be willing to take a look at Revelation sometime if you want, but let's get some more foundational stuff done before we do that. Yeah, Ben, we missed you. Glad it was up there for you. Although what I ended up doing on the stream was what I had preached the week before, and you were there for that. So, but anyway, everybody, that's it for tonight. So thank you for being here. I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas. Don't forget Christmas Eve service, December 24th. That's Christmas Eve at 6 o'clock at the church. We'll have music and liturgy and the reading of the birth narrative and communion and candlelight. So if you're in town, you'll want to make that if you're able to. If I don't see you before then, again, I just want to wish you a very Merry Christmas. I've enjoyed celebrating Advent with you, and I am looking forward to celebrating the New Year with you as well. So God bless, Godspeed, and as always, thanks for watching.